Gen Z has almost introduced UGC as a proper marketing channel to everyone's brands. And you would say like, oh, UGC is for Gen Z only, but it's not anymore.
Once they buy into a brand, that you've got them now, they're kind of like a lifelong advocate for your brand. So I think it's so important because then they'll be coming back to the brands that they love.
The ideal goal is that Gen Z says, oh, this is so me. And you don't probably get this if you just advertise a single product, like, oh, this is doing this and that. But you have someone like a POV or day in their life and then integrate this person because they say it's going to solve my problem. And then they will tag other people, for example, or share this with friends like, hey, this is so you, but not because someone's advertising a product, but a story.
You're not just hopping on every single trend because you think it's what the Gen Z would like. It has to really align with your values and your company to get on the trend.
Welcome. So Gen Z doesn't buy into traditional marketing. As we know that, they buy into brands, they align with the value that align with their values, their culture, their identity. And so today we're going to be digging into what it actually takes to build that kind of connection and how brands can earn real advocacy in 2025 and beyond from there. So welcome, guys. Before we kick it off, please tell us who you are, what you do, and a little bit about your organization and your role.
So my name is Lara. I'm CEO and founder of Twirl. We are, I would say, UK's leading UGC platform. We've been around for 3 years now, and we help consumer companies, not only brands. I would say 30% of our clients don't have a physical product with UGC. So we have around 4,000 creators on our platform. My background is actually in D2C. So I was running a fashion e-commerce platform in Germany before. And I feel like Twirl started when I was using UGC in 2018, 2019, when UGC, the term didn't even exist. I would say you would call it content creators. This is how the whole idea around Twirl started. Give it over to Rosie.
I'm Rosie. I'm the digital marketing manager for Umberto Giannini, which is a hair care brand. We advertise on kind of Meta, TikTok mainly, Google, and we've really found that UGC is helping us massively to get those conversions.
And so what kind of percentage of your customers are Gen Z?
It's growing a lot. I would say probably about 30 to 40% now. We did kind of a big push on Gen Z last year. We did like a student roadshow. So we went around to all the different universities on Freshers Week and did pop-ups. And it was just so interesting to see what people were talking about, what kind of the trends were, what the different questions Gen Z asked as opposed to kind of a millennial. It's definitely growing.
What were the different questions?
Well, the different questions.
I have to ask you.
Mostly like how to take good content, like get good photos with the products or how to use the products. Whereas I feel like millennials are more about kind of the care, like what the ingredients, etc. Whereas I feel like Gen Z wanted to do more of the how-tos and kind of what we stood for. So we're vegan, cruelty-free, and I think that's really what they were very interested in.
These were customers or they were creators or a bit of both?
So this was at the roadshow. So kind of, I guess, new to brand. Just awareness driving.
And their main question was about how they could create content off the back of it.
Basically, yeah.
Which I think sort of tells us something about the generation in its entirety there, which is phenomenal. That's kind of abstract from where we are. So why do you think that we're talking so much about Gen Z right now? Like, why is this such an important part of the dialogue? So much of what we talk about in terms of content creation and social seems to be very much focused on that as a demographic. What makes them so different when it comes to choosing brands?
The reason why it's becoming so important is that Gen Z shapes not only their own target group, there's this ripple effect on all other target audiences. So what I consume is probably what I would call Gen Z content, but maybe it's also my content that I consume. Is just that Gen Z has shaped the way how we consume content, what kind of content we produce. So I think this is the reason why we talk Gen Z is so important, but it's more like what Gen Z introduced to marketing and how we now consume it has shaped all other age groups almost. which is, I think, why UGC, I would say that Gen Z has almost introduced UGC as a proper marketing channel to everyone's brands. And you would say like, oh, UGC is for Gen Z only, but it's not anymore. So I think this is why when you look at Gen Z, what they consume, what they like, it applies to every other target audience. It's just that Gen Z communicates the most, and probably that's why you can learn so much from this specific target audience, because at the end of the day, they are the ones then communicating what they like and what they want in a brand, and then they would take it and apply it to every other target group in their brand.
I think they've also got longevity, because obviously at the age that they are, and it's kind of been shown that once they buy into a brand, that you've got them now, they're kind of like a lifelong advocate for your brand. So I think it's so important, because then they'll be growing up and they'll be, as they age, they'll be coming back to the brands that they love. So I think it's really important to get them when they're really buying into your brand, and then you carry them with you.
What do you think that the thresholds are for Gen Z, just so we can be on the same page?
I don't know. I wonder who's Gen Z in this audience, actually.
I'd say like we're millennials.
Yeah,
I'd say 18 to 24.
24, do you think? Yeah, do we agree with that? A bit later than that? 28, you think? Yeah, 28? Yeah. I find it fascinating, because I'm at the very top end of what a millennial is. I think for me, the millennial generation is someone who's grown up on the internet. So your brain formed in your early teens online, and you had this kind of internet mindset. And there's all these people who are in their, early 40s. They're like, yeah, well, I'm a millennial. I'm a digital native. It's like, you're not really. You're like, you started logging into MSN when you were 15. It's like, no, we were there. We were there much earlier than that. And I think kind of Gen Z for me is this, it's the same, but only it's social. So it's like you went through teenagehood, you went through secondary or high school, with a social media as a lens. And I think that the way that someone's brain evolves to know that they're hyper connected to everyone and everything, they can be seen, I think it just changes everything. The fact that you're saying that the questions they're asking is about how they can create, it's like their life is on show in a way that I think that millennials and Gen X and boomers and all those things just cannot get. So I think I'm fascinated by it as a trend. And so when you're looking at them, do you actually think, you talked there actually, Rosie, about how they stick with a brand for a long time, and this is them buying into it. However, one of the things that I'm hearing back is that actually brand loyalty in Gen Z is less, but their product loyalty is super high. And so have you seen any of this? I'd love to get to the bottom of this.
To be honest, no. I think we're we're earlier on in our marketing to them, so I'm not sure I could fully give you a truthful answer to that. I do think from people I've spoken to and things, I think that they're loyal to a brand with their values, even if they don't like the product, get on necessarily with the products. They were talking about beauty or fashion. If it's not necessarily the products for them, they can still would advocate for a brand. But no, sorry, I don't have any examples of that for you.
I would rather say that Gen Z is loyal to a brand rather than a product. I think we were talking about pop-ups. I think this is how you create those connections to Gen Z, and maybe they have favorites in your collection, what they prefer the most. But I think most of all, it's probably crucial to have this brand loyalty as opposed to product loyalty, because once maybe it takes one product to convince your target audience that this is going to solve your problem in your daily life. They will like the product and then fall in love with your brand, and then they will pick maybe new products. So you're going to launch this, or maybe you don't like this product, but then next time, but you will just check out this brand every time when they launch something, and you stick with this brand, hopefully long time, no matter the product. That's what I would say.
And what do you think it is that a brand makes a brand really stick out rather than just the product? So they fall in love with the product, but then they need to fall in love with the brand. What is it that makes Gen Z fall in love with a brand?
Yeah, maybe I can start.
I think there's quite a few things. I think it's a two-way conversation. I think you have to really engage with them. And I think that you have to just be super authentic in who you are and be consistent with that authenticity. So say you're not just hopping on every single trend because you think it's what the Gen Z would like. It has to really align with your values and your company to get on the trend. and the sense of community, like really just making sure. I think the brand Refy, I think they do this amazingly. They have an amazing community. They go on, they do these community walks, so they just invite kind of their consumers, and I think it really stands out.
So I think many brands, when they advertise a product, you almost advertise your brand instead, and then make the product part of your advertising almost on the side. The ideal goal is that Gen Z says, "Oh, this is so me," and you don't probably get this if you just advertise a single product, like, "Oh, this is doing this and that," but you have someone like a POV or day in the life, and then integrate this person because they say it's gonna solve my problem, and then everyone will probably comment, oh, they will tag other people, for example, or share this with friends, like, hey, this is so you, but not because someone's advertising a product, but a story. And I think this is what sticks with Gen Z in particular, like telling those stories. And then maybe they stick with the brand long term because the story is just consistent across all channels. And then you just tweak, like you just drop your product every now and then.
Yeah, you keep it tweaking. And you sort of stick by your why. I mean, it's similar to the principles that we talk about there, is that kind of that core purpose that's there, and building community. It just seems to be ubiquitous. Do you think it's possible to appeal to a Gen Z brand without a clear purpose, without building community, and using some of the old school techniques of kind of top-down command and control brand building?
To be honest, no. I think because there's also so many new brands popping up all the time at the moment, I think you really have to have your clear goals and purposes, and kind of shift from that old top-down marketing, because we don't see conversions from that anymore at all. Even when it's not through Gen Z, the most conversions we see is through UGC and through kind of talking to people and community. We don't see it from that top-down marketing anymore.
The problem with that probably is that it might work in the short run, but then in the long run, it will probably come back to you because you haven't built this community. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes that I had with my previous company, that I think you always have goals. Also, as a marketer, you always need to push for these specific goals. Especially if you work in paid advertisement, you just have less customer acquisition costs, and you need to have X goal by the end of the month. And it does work, but you always need to set aside time for all things community building, which is probably you need to bring a lot of patience with that, and then you need to trust that this is going to help you in the long run. Because what we did is we pushed paid advertisement to the absolute minimum and didn't set aside anything towards community building. I think it's related to Gen Z, but every target audience is, they want to see community, they want to stick to this brand, and if you just push advertisement, it will just fail in maybe not in the next 3 months, but maybe in a year and a half.
Yeah, there aren't any free lunches to be had in sort of performance marketing anymore. Everyone is to a standard. It used to be kind of in the teens that you could have a D2C brand and you could sell mattresses and you'd do very well at it because you had the margin. You could sort of triage against that, and then arbitrage even. But actually now you've got, everyone is advertising in the same field, and this completely level, which means that it's just not a point of differentiation. So it's very hard to build a business on performance today,
and it's so expensive.
It's so expensive. And Zuckerberg doesn't need any more money.
No,
like how do you so how, like, I think this kind of authenticity piece that's showing up, it just seems to be baked into the psyche of Gen Z. Like, first of all, do you have any kind of, why do you think that's the case? Why is this such an important thing? And secondly, how can brands show up and play to that?
I was thinking the same. Why? So we always say that Gen Z wants this authenticity, and I also wondered why. We're two millennials now here sitting in the panel, but I think COVID played a big role, because that was the time when you probably Gen Z, they were students, and then all of a sudden you're just pulled out of your daily life almost, and then you study alone, you work alone, you grind every day, you have no connection whatsoever, whilst I feel like millennials might have been better in that time than Gen Z was. I don't know why. I think it was because it was so early on in that, maybe their career steps, or how this excitement about life in the early 20s, how they want to build, or like 18, 19, you want to build your life, and suddenly you're cut off from society, which is why they might have questioned more what they value depending on career or in a life or friends even, which is why authenticity maybe played a bigger role than it is for millennials. And I feel like also millennials or Gen X grew up with these polished ads that I'm even used to, whilst Gen Z would, they would probably just grab a phone, create a video, no makeup, just a pimple patch, while I would put on 3 layers of makeup before I would even present myself in the internet. And I think this is what COVID probably changed, because like, what does it even matter? I'm just going online and see what happens. And the thing is, this worked across all other target audiences. And I think this is why now marketers try to apply what worked on all other target audiences, and try to shape it in a way that feels authentic because it worked. And now there's so much content online that's so authentic that it's now accepted to be raw and vulnerable and no makeup on. And I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe like, what's this now? Like, no makeup on. But now it's fine because there's so much content that just looks like this. And you just, as a Gen X or millennial, like, okay, whatever. Then I'm also trying without makeup today.
Me too.
I also think that the market is so saturated, especially in beauty. There's new brands, new products popping up everywhere all the time, and it's like, who do you trust? If what everyone's doing the same thing, which one should I go for? So I think the one that feels the most real and the most valuable, I think, is why it kind of the authenticity plays like a role as well.
I'm always really interested in how a brand can find the right balance, because I think that there seems to be a real kind of collision between an old school, the VP of brand. They're not a Gen Z. I'm pretty sure of that. And there's this kind of old school mindset. This is our brand aesthetic. We can't go against that. And then there's this body of evidence that's pretty massive that that's just not what people want anymore, and it's not what works. I know that we've done, like, we have an A/B test and say, right, use some of this really ropey content that is not being allowed in by your brand team, and put it into your media buy, and it always outperforms everything that they've spent millions shipping models to beaches and all those kind of things for it. But like, it's still there's still the brand team's there because they're building a brand, they're building an aesthetic. They are core values that they do. These things always seem to be at complete loggerheads. So, like, do you have any thoughts or advice for how brands can figure out where that balance needs to be? Is it all UGC, sod the brand guidelines, let's throw them away, let's entirely decentralize our brand storytelling to our community, or actually is there still a place for that?
I think my marketing manager would kill me if I threw the brand guidelines off. But I think it's about kind of working together, how you can make the UGC also feel like your brand, and picking the right creators, and spending time kind of really building relationships with the creators so that they kind of already have your brand tone of voice, or they, even if it's not polished, the stuff that they're saying is stuff you would say. So it all kind of fits together. I don't necessarily think that the aesthetic always needs to be the same. It just needs to, I think it's the messaging really that needs to resonate.
So you curate the creator rather than the content. And do you think you should be giving them guidelines as well in terms of what content they create, or entirely allow them to create in the way that they want?
No, I think guidelines, but I think loose guidelines. I know, so I work with Twirl all the time, and it's really good. You can either say that you want, this is scripted, and like, because some stuff, say you're doing like a promotion, you need it X, Y, and Z, but then, or you can say it's kind of loose guidelines, like feel free to, ad lib or whatever. So I think, it's important to have, but it's also, you want it to feel authentic. So if it's a script, it doesn't necessarily feel that authentic. So you want to give kind of loose guidelines on how to use the product, but the way you say, describe how I would write like, describe how it smells in my guidelines, so that they have kind of the freedom to, say how it smells themselves, not just from me.
I've got a great screenshot of one of the Kardashian clans doing an Instagram post that includes the guidelines of when to do the post, which I think is a classic. Do you agree with this? Do you think that this kind of, is there a happy medium, or if it was given to you,
it's a very scary process, actually. I think I also had a few conversations this morning, and I absolutely feel that it's, should you just throw out your brand guidelines and like, oh, whatever, it looks unpolished, it's UGC. But I think there's a middle ground, and I think, Rosie does it well with the team. It's spend rather more time finding the right creator that does understand the brand. The ideal case is, for example, if someone wants to work with you on UGC that already has the product. I'm like, hey, I'm using this for 3 years straight.
So many people, when they apply to my things on Twirl, they already say, I already love your products. I use X, Y, and Z. I'd be a great advocate for your brand. So it's about finding those people.
Yeah, as long as you give them a story to tell, and then your brand guidelines, tone of voice. Spend a lot of time finding the right creators for long term, because they will understand your brand better than maybe you do, because they will pick it up in a different way, and maybe you wouldn't have done it in the way the creator would do the script, but just a rough guideline. What is it? What you're looking for? Give them a story to tell. Give them a problem to solve, and they will interpret it in a way that fits what they think fits their audience. And I think that's the best thing you can do, especially if you want to target Gen Z. The funny thing is, my sister, she's a creative strategist, and she works with a brand that only targets a younger audience. And she had this very good script that performed in paid ads, and she would throw it in ChatGPT and said, make it sound more Gen Z. And it's just a horrible outcome. Like, there's no way you would ever use this kind of script. So rather give the creator some guidelines. And as you said, Rosie, just some guidance on, this is how we usually communicate, or like visually, this is how it could go, like describe a feeling, describe your story, integrate it in your daily life. And if you pick the right creator, I think you look for the right creators. You spend some time on finding the ones with curly hair or like frizzy hair, because they already pitch when they apply to a campaign, like, I have this problem, I would love to solve it for you in a UGC video almost, and then let them go and interpret the brief, how it fits. And I think this works best. And then using this content and see, I know that the next scary step is probably then using this type of content that maybe you haven't used before. So I will just test and see what happens. And maybe you just eventually have to accept that raw content also works alongside your polished ads.
So I have this conversation like every day as well with brands. And I think the guidance that I always line in is actually to think of it in a full funnel manner. And it's like, how can you think of the right content at the right stage? So if you think top of funnel, this is very much about the brand. You're talking about content, you're talking about the brand, how much I love the brand, I think they're cool, these are the values. And what you don't want to do there, if someone's really cool and they fit your brand aesthetic and you really want to work with them, you don't want them to then say, and look, get 10% off here by using my code. And because that just like devalues the brand building piece. It's got to be cool. Like, that's the part of it you're trying to do. And then as you go further down the funnel, then it becomes about the product. Then it becomes about the features and the benefits. And actually that's then when it can be as ropey as you get. In fact, the ropier, the better. And even if you're then just thinking about this content when you're reusing it within your media buy, it's like for your high level, like top of funnel ads, yep, brand, but at the bottom of the funnel, it's ropey, it's product specific. This is how I use it in my day-to-day routine or whatever it is as it comes to this. And I think finding that balance is you probably have to have both, to really make that work.
I also think for Gen Z, I think I never get them to call out that, there's 10% off or anything, because I think it really devalues the authenticity, because I know that some brands do that. I just sometimes will do it for maybe like a millennial creator, but for Gen Z, I would always maybe put like save 10% in the caption or something like that. I would never get them to speak it, because I just don't think it adds to the value.
10% off your Avo, smashed Avos.
Exactly.
So we got some great questions coming in here as well. How do you convince potentially archaic business that they need to move away from thinking top-down marketing is the most important and to invest more in UGC? Love that question.
I think UGC can actually apply to multiple funnels, top of both, all of it. So there's obviously, I think many people assume that UGC is only used for paid. And then you, like Rosie said, you have a video ad saying like, hey, this is a product, this is what's going to do, buy it now. But you can actually create your whole marketing strategy around UGC, use it for top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, use it in email, website, product pages, just online. It doesn't have to be salesy. Probably on organic social, you use UGC anyway. It's already UGC. It doesn't have to be salesy, but then integrate in other funnels as well. We had brands asking if they can use it in TV commercials. Like, yeah, sure, give it a try. If you want to use it for TV commercials, see how it performs there. And you can even use UGC as a brand awareness tool. People coming to your pop-up shops, also great UGC piece, inviting UGC UGC creators to your events, so they film a day in their life. Also works. So
I managed to get it over the line because Twirl does this great thing where you just buy the credits, so it's not like a monthly payment, so it's perfect. So like if you just wanted to test, say like a couple pieces of content, it's not a massive investment at the beginning. So I think that's a really good, like the way you've strategized your business is amazing to get brands into it, to be able to show, and then you put it on the platforms, show obviously it works first, and then you can kind of take that to the business and show them that this is the way you should be going.
I like that. So Beth's asked, there's been a lot of talking about being authentic, but what does it mean to be authentic as a brand?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. Authentic, yeah, even in a TV commercial, you can be authentic. If I would say authenticity for me personally is when you're consistent with your messaging and then bring it into different content types almost, so you don't change course overnight again because you feel like, oh, this didn't work last week, so let's change course again. Just stick for one thing for a little bit longer, because then authenticity is built over trust over a long period of time in my eyes. So it can be UGC, it can be a founder videos even, and then just stick to it. And I feel like this is building authenticity around your brand, no matter if it's UGC or any other content type.
I think also it's when you ask yourself, like say you want to do something, like you want to do a trend or you want to do a different video, you sit and you ask yourself, does this feel like my brand? Like would my brand do this, or would someone that's buying my brand, would they think this is good? And I think that's keeping yourself authentic.
So I always think it's the big opportunity that a lot of brands miss is that they're sitting on this incredible pile of authentic fans that will talk about them, which are your customers, your loyalists, whoever's opening your emails, have signed up to your CRM, those people there. It's just like, give them a chance. So like, looking at the stats, it's about 1 in 4 of them are active social media creators on TikTok and Instagram, and then probably a lot more when you think about LinkedIn, YouTube, Pinterest, Strava. If you think about it, every person here in the room probably does create it in some way. So that number of people is probably a lot higher than we even give it credit for. And so it's actually, how do you activate those customers? How do you give them a chance to show up? How do you offer it out? Because I think a lot of the time you kind of go around it and just being like, okay, right, where are we going to find these authentic people who could talk about us? Oh, where are they? It's like, you've got them, as you just said. When they show up, they say, I've got this problem, I'm a massive fan, I'd love to show up for it. And so that kind of Venn diagram has become, the overlap is much bigger. 10 years ago, it would have been, one person in your customer base that was creating. Now it's going to be edging towards the majority at some point over the next few years, from the sounds of things, particularly with this generation. How do you keep up with Gen Z trends, right? They're constantly changing, like they move, they're there a second and they move again. Like Beth was talking about earlier about like fast content and slow content, which I love. But like, how are you guys doing it as marketing professionals?
So what we see other creative strategists do, so I think creative strategist as a whole I feel like a new category and job role that came up only recently almost. There used to be the media buyer and then social media manager or paid social manager. And then this middle role was created, which is a creative strategist, which is only basically the person that's overseeing all paid social channels and then interpret this for creators to then create more content almost. We see lots of tools that they use. Maybe you've heard, like, there's Foreplay, VisiLabs, Afterlip, AdSpy. I mean, it's very strategic advice, but yeah, we see those tools are used on a daily basis. I think VisiLabs has some AI integrated, would pop up, competitor ads and then see what's best performing. So I think there are lots of tools coming up recently in the last 2-3 years that it's only dedicated for this specific role that need to keep up with all these trends, because it changes overnight and the next day you refresh and have got more competitor ads or more inspirational ads that you can use for your next campaign. And then you obviously need to act fast because it just changes so quickly.
I kind of take it from my own life when I'm scrolling on TikTok and I see kind of, oh, this trend would work really well for us. Again, we don't hop on all the trends. We only want to do ones that feel authentic to us. So I think it's about obviously keeping up with them and having knowledge of what's going on, but also picking and choosing the right ones that you want to hop on.
Do you feel anxious that you're missing out on whatever is the hot new thing?
No.
No. Good.
No FOMO.
Does anyone else here feel anxious all the time? No? Good. Oh, well done. Izzy's got a great question. What's your opinion on brands using culture and entertainment to target Gen Z? And how are you harnessing this as part of your strategy for your clients and brands? If this really is it's such an interesting phase now where I think we were talking about earlier that brands have been completely personified and that they now have a way of having a conversation with their customers that they never previously had. You know, it used to be that you'd sell through a retailer and that retailer would kind of own the customer, but even then it was mostly done in stores. But actually now it's gone D2C. Plus we've got all these social media channels, which are these conversation channels where we can have a back and forth that just never existed before. And so now a brand can be a person, it can have a personality, it can have an opinion, it stands for various things. So like actually, I think people are leaning on brands in a way that they used to lean on culture that we never used to have. I don't know if are you seeing like your customers are coming to you with day-to-day problems, nothing to do with your products. You're hearing them like have conversations in the community around it. I've been hearing this a couple of times.
I think our comment sections are full of people just chatting away. Kind of, I guess content then inspires different thoughts and different feelings and emotions. Yeah.
And so I think, the final one here is, we've got 20 seconds to go. What advice would you give to get brands to buy in or leverage UGC? Belief and trust isn't enough, so what do you use?
Oh yeah, I think it's letting go of that control, or that fear of using UGC. I think that's my biggest advice. I know it's painful, but just let the creator do their work and trust in the creator. I think that's the best thing you can try to get the foot in the door of UGC.
Yeah, I'd say find the right creators for your brand.
And I'd say run an A/B test. Like, be very easy, put some media, same budget, same everything, just different content and see which one performs best. It'll be the UGC. Thank you guys so much. Lara and Rosie, that was fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.